Before too, I think, because I have to select what they're hearing in OBS,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's what's causing the problem.
Hey, I think they can hear me on the stream now.
Yeah, I think so too.
What? What happened? What's going on?
I think I completely figured out all the problems now that I've shut down everything else.
Oh, yay!
So,
Science, friends,
so
science.
good news is next week I'll be able to play the music because
Hello, can you hear me?
I was telling them to hear line 1, and line 1's not you guys.
Oh,
I
that would do the trick.
I have to have my
Yay!
Yeti things for them to hear it.
So fired.
Which means somehow I have to send you guys through the line in order for everything to sound nice.
So you don't have us on line 1?
We have a call parked on line 4. Can you pick up the call parked on line 4?
Okay. So I think we're ready for a show.
All right, let's do it.
And
Do it.
if anybody in the chat room has any questions during the show, please let us know. We're a little short on questions overall. It'd be cool to be able to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the one that we have in the notes we answered last week.
There's one with from Agathon that we didn't answer. It was there last week, but I skipped it last week.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And everyone, don't be afraid to ask, if you're really new to MOBAs, don't be afraid to ask newbie-type questions, because that's what we're here for, to help even new players. So.
Das ist noob.
Yeah.
Why did they screw up the Arthas regular skin?
Yeah, I was looking at that today. It's all kind of...
When they showed it off at
Man.
BlizzCon, I'm like, what are you people doing? You art team.
What's wrong with it?
I'll talk about it on the show when we talk about the skins.
David, I made you red, right?
I'll say that
I am red.
with passion.
I don't know, red means
I have the
dead.
power of heart.
It's a Canadian colors.
Yes, it's also an American color.
Yeah, that's true.
We
I think a
all
lot of
have the
people
same
have that
colors,
color.
David. You know that, right?
We got a copyright.
And British, that's true also.
That's true.
Why is Arthas a dwarf? Arthas is not a dwarf, Axel. That's false.
He's just very small on your
Look,
screen.
the time that we've wasted getting ready has just brought more people in. They heard how great our mess-ups are, so they brought more people.
Like, hey, want to hear something super pathetic? Come check out this stream. Watch these losers try and figure this out, lol.
Part of our master plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Excellent.
All right. Are we going to do it? Let's do it.
Yes, let's go
Whoa.
ahead.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Take me out for dinner first or something.
So you guys have Audacity ready, right?
Yep.
Okay, so in 3, 2, 1, record.
Fantastic.
And whenever you're ready, Rem.
Welcome to the Nexus, the podcast for the heroes of Blizzard Entertainment.
Hello, heroes! Thank you all for tuning in to episode 3 of the Nexus. I am your host Adam Eastwood, as always, and I have my co-host with me. We have a Paladin by day and Hearthstone Paladin by night, Remedies.
Oh, what's up, everybody? What's up, chat room and listeners? I am totally stealing David's line right now.
And our lore-loving, time-altering gamer, David Troy.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful, loving, and bountiful Thanksgiving, or as we call it in Canada, Thursday.
And the co-host of Holy Shat, a veteran mage and MOBA support top lane, Xantar.
Hello, friends. Hello, friends. It's been a week, and a week is far too long, so I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, it's a great time to kind of talk about what's been going on. There's been a little controversy this week. It'll be exciting. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we did this week. Remedies, how was your week?
I played video games, and I ate turkey, and I'm a nerd, so I game all the time. Next!
Yes, David.
I'm really excited. My raid team, Solid Senate, managed to get spoils down in World of Warcraft, so we're pretty pumped about that. Also got to jump into MOBA League of Legends quite a bit. Finally, I think found the champion there that I feel comfortable with. Go Corky. I love that little gnome.
And finally, Xantar, what have you been up to?
A lot of League of Legends lately. Working on my top lane game, as I mentioned last week, trying to get a little bit better with that. Trying some unconventional support champions, which has been both successful and really, really depressing in its results, ranging. So a lot of that. Got DDR for my birthday, so I've been obviously doing a lot of DDR, burning dem calories, doing some dancing to the bad romance of sorts. But that's been about it. Played a lot of Pokemon X, so that's a thing. I guess that's a thing that people do. But yeah, and trying to find things to do on my PS4 because there's not tons to do on it right now, besides like the one game I have. But that's about it.
Well, isn't the PS4 the one you can stream right off of right away?
Yes, so I have been streaming Resogun and Battlefield 4. I'm probably going to pick up either Assassin's Creed 4 or Need for Speed Rivals this weekend and do some of that this coming week as well.
Oh, nice. Now, for me, I've been playing a lot of League of Legends this week, I think, over every other game. Just to kind of get back into MOBAs. I took a little bit of a break myself, trying a couple different roles out, tried jungling, tried mid, with some heroes that I'm not too comfortable with, so it was fun to go ahead and try something new for once. So we're going to kind of go into the news a little bit. I know first thing that kind of popped up, it happened last Friday. There was some news about an interview with Rock Paper Shotgun with Dustin Browder, where there were some comments that I don't think people weren't too happy with about the models that they're using for some of the characters. They tried to make a serious question, and Dustin Browder I think tried to push it off as not so serious. Rem, did you get a chance to read that and have any views on that?
I did read it. I do have many views on it. Somewhat controversial, I guess. So I'm highly opinionated on this matter. If you want me to really go into it.
Go.
Okay. For one, I think the person who was interviewing Dustin Browder was kind of pushy and didn't really have in my opinion, everyone, I don't think this interviewer had the right to even ask those questions. Because if you read it, it's all transcripted. And it seems like he kind of just goes from like asking, typical official type questions and then just like forces these, the questions about the skins on Dustin Browder kind of like, like from left field or for lack of a better term. So I think Dustin Browder felt a little shocked and had to think quickly of a way to answer these questions, which may be why his answers were so lacking sustenance. However, all of that aside, I don't know. I just don't understand. Okay, I understand the controversy over, less dressed female characters. It's just not something that has ever bothered me. Like, I am a girl, and when I play MMOs or MOBAs or video games in general, I like playing characters that are super attractive and very good looking because I can't dress that way in real life, so it helps it feel like a fantasy game to me. So like my paladin in World of Warcraft is totally scantily clad, but that's me. That's how I like to play, and I understand that there are girls out there that don't like their characters to look like that. So I'm all for, I guess, having the option. Yeah, we could use some skins where they're wearing more actual armor that covers them more and stuff like that, and that's fine, but don't take away my scantily clad heroes because I want them. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you saying that it was just out of left field is like perfect sense. I mean, he went from really talking about serious stuff, which we'll get into, to talking about stuff that really I don't think Justin Browder really does a lot with. He's not the head of graphics or design. He's the game designer, not the skin designer. I think that, I think they need to kind of calm down a little bit it's not that big of an issue. He was just trying to say, we're not too concerned about the hypersexualized look of some of the characters in League of Legends. We're worrying more about the players being fun, the heroes being fun to play, everyone feeling more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Michael Kinsley in Slate, the founder of Slate.com, who said a political gaffe is when you tell the truth, the obvious truth, but it's a truth that you're not supposed to say out loud. And I think that's what Dustin did in this spot. Like, basically, to recap what he said, he goes, of course everybody's hypersexualized in these games. Kerrigan wears high heels. We're not running for president. We're not here to be the politically correct voice. This is just, what sells out there. I mean, I think as a gaming community, too, we got to be really careful about this. Because, how many times have we all sat there and we've watched politicians interviewed on TV after some tragedy saying, well, we have to look at video games, we have to look at the violence in video games, we have to look at how, maybe we should ban the violence in video games. And, of course, as gamers, we all basically sit back and say, this is ridiculous, video games don't make people violent. My grandmother plays Call of Duty and, blows people away in that game. If we all of a sudden start changing that attitude and start, taking a very serious approach to things like how people dress in video games and thinking that changes how people think, I mean, really, I don't see the difference between one and the other.
And Zentar, did you have any views on it?
I mean, I'll probably take the most flack for what I'm about to say, but I don't really care. I mean, sexualize it up all you want. Like, at the end of the day, it's a video game. It's like he said, they're not trying to send a message. Nobody should look at the game for that. This is not a game trying to build up self-image or anything. Like, they pointed out at BlizzCon, like, Kerrigan wears heels in combat. That doesn't work. Like, it doesn't, and it's not supposed to, and she's supposed to be overly sexualized. That's part of the character, and it matches her personality. And that's, I think, a big disconnect people are making is if she didn't look how she looked, it wouldn't like drive home her personality even more. She's supposed to be that kind of sly, seductive, sleek, kind of snake-like person, and her physical appearance matches that. It's at the end of the day, I mean, yes, I can understand why that people want, fair representation of, what we call realistic society, but at the end of the day, it's a video game. It's a work of fiction. I don't see very many authors getting flack for most of their characters in novels, being depicted as a similar body shape as to a lot of these, and so what? I mean, do we have nothing better to worry about? Like let's get over ourselves, really. So yeah. You can send your angry tweets to me.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, and we're playing a game where we're shooting people. We're playing a game where we're hitting people with flamethrowers. If I run into someone and they're saying, "Oh, what am I doing in a video game?" "Oh, I'm shooting this girl with a flamethrower, and the girl's in a bikini." If you're really taking it very seriously, the bikini part shouldn't be what you're upset about, really. I mean,
earlier.
Oh, sorry, but
just to really hit on your part, but go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I mean, to flip it on the other side, though, and we've talked about how one of the strengths in this game is that there's a lot of attachment to these characters. There's a lot of lore behind these characters, and what Blizzard could run into that's an issue that's a little bit different than games like Dota 2 and League of Legends is that there is a certain amount of investment that people have in these characters. If you look up to Jaina Proudmoore as this super strong woman and she's really amazing, and you look up to her, I mean, I don't know if you look up to her as a role model, but if you look up to her as an example of a strong woman in the game, and all of a sudden they're doing Playboy Bunny Jaina, that might have a different effect than you would with a character in one of these other games where people don't have attachment to. And I think that's something that Blizzard does have to watch out for, because if you've been playing World of Warcraft all these years and you look at when maybe you're still running ICC and maybe you're still look to the Lich King as this very imposing figure, and all of a sudden they've got surfer guy Lich King or something like that, it can take some of the immersion out.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, they're kind of doing the community a favor if you want to look at it from a different angle. We shouldn't look up to Kerrigan based on just their personality alone. We shouldn't do that. So over-sexualize her, and even more, we shouldn't do that. I mean, wouldn't it be kind of weird if she looked like a normal, nice lady and had the personality she did? Wouldn't there be some sort of weird identity crisis there? But I don't know. I think it. I mean, I'm not a girl, so I can't really be the one to really truly comment on the effect that it's going to have and how fair it is to females in the gaming culture. But I think we've gotten far too sensitive to it, and this is not a PR guy that was being talked to. This is not the guy that's really that thinks smart or anything. This is a guy that just says what he thinks and doesn't really care. He's a game designer. I mean, this is a guy that sits at the computer and makes stuff look pretty and makes it work. Like, this is not a guy that really probably has like the true vision of everything, probably doesn't know the actual artistic reason why things look the way they do, but he just makes it. So he's kind of set up to fail right from the get-go. But I don't know, we could use a little bit less sensitivity, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and go with that and agree. I think that there are a lot of issues in the gaming world in general that a lot of people are too sensitive about, like violence in video games and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, there have been instances where somebody has done something bad and then the media or whatever, justice has been able to blame that on video games. But in essence, most people who play video games aren't bad people. Like, I play video games and I play hypersexualized characters because I like them, by the way. But you don't see me out like hooking on the corner of the street. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying. So like,
you don't see it.
Me. No, but it just frustrates me that the most vocal people in the community are the ones whose opinions affect millions of people, when I have opinions that oppose to the people who don't like the hypersexualized characters, but nobody gives a damn what I think. And so it's just frustrating because I am a female and I'm a gamer, and the hypersexualized skins don't bother me. I actually like them. But I'm, if I were to say that and, in this circumstance, like if it was a debate or something like that, people would just probably tear me apart for having that opinion. So it really.
Have you seen my mage in WoW's arms? That dude's pipes are like anacondas. Have you seen my arms? These things are like baby snakes.
It's true though. Sorry, Xantar.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's a double-edged sword, and it's, and not to negate the fact that women have a lot more, I say social issues, but I don't mean that women have the social issues, but a lot of the connotation and, and stuff that, that men certainly don't deal with. But it's just a part of what we do. We take things, put it on the pedestal, and make it extreme in every case of everything. And I think this is just a normal example of it. And I don't know. I don't think it's going to go away, certainly. People will probably continue to be offended, but those people will probably continue to be offended that I bought margarine instead of butter. So I'm not too worried.
I mean, being said, if someone's listening and they feel like we haven't really addressed the point, contact us and we'll, if it's a point of view that maybe we haven't thought about, let us know and we can talk to it on a future show as well.
Yep.
Well, let's go ahead and kind of move on from that topic and really go into some of the gameplay features that we heard about in this interview. Kind of the fun stuff that we have to look forward to. I think the best question is really when he asked them how do they plan on making money off of Heroes of the Storm. And even though he said, you'll be able to purchase currency, he kind of turned it more into how are we going to be able to unlock characters without spending money. And I thought that was a nice way to kind of push into it, because I think that's a big concern on a lot of people. Is they want to get all these characters and collect every single one of them, but they want to spend as little money as possible. And I know with like League of Legends, I have like the Champions pack that they gave you for $20, and I bought maybe one character since then. With Heroes of the Storm, it looks like there's going to be a couple different types of currencies out there. Do you guys think that you like the system that they talked about during the interview?
I want it to be more like Hearthstone. So like in Hearthstone, you can play and earn gold, or you can buy packs or arena runs, but you can just keep playing to earn gold to buy packs or arena runs, and that's it. It's just gold. It's just one thing. You can earn it in game and spend it on all of the things that you can buy with regular money. So you have that choice: play to earn or pay to earn, right? So if it's like League of Legends, for example, you can't earn riot points as far as I can remember. You can only earn influence points. And riot points are the only thing that you can use to buy skins with. Most skins cost riot points, so you have to buy them with real money. You can't keep playing and earn influence points and unlock the skins that you want. And I really don't like that. I want to have the option, because in Hearthstone, I play constantly to earn the gold, to buy the packs, the arena runs, so on and so forth. So
I thought that I might be mistaken, but it sounded to me like they are kind of mimicking the League of Legends purchasing system. Am I incorrect?
Yeah. No, I think that's what they are going for, and
I'm actually totally okay with that. To play devil's advocate with Rem, as I seem to have the habit of doing. I think being able to they're talking about rotating champions that you're going to be able to fight as, and I think that's fantastic and a great way for people that maybe aren't spending a lot of time in it or aren't spending a lot of money, either of those things being kind of the two real currencies that you put into the game. I think I like that idea of having that rotation, so you get some diversity that way, and through that system in League of Legends, you earn what's called IP. And you can use that to unlock champions, buy runes, glyphs, and a couple other small items. And then the money maker for the business is, as Rem mentioned, the RP, which goes towards skins. And I think it's kind of, with Hearthstone, it always kind of feels like they're, to their benefit, they never make it so you have to pay for things that are going to make a difference in the game. And if they do this with Heroes of the Storm, you're able to unlock all the champions which affect the gameplay without spending money. And then I think the business aspect of it and the continual investment of assets on their end, of making new skins and having that kind of be where some development goes into, I think that's a good place for their money to come from. Because if it doesn't come from there, I don't really know that it would come from too many places. Because MOBAs, you get all the champions pretty quickly if you played a decent amount. And, I mean, it wouldn't be long before I, just by virtue of playing a fair amount, would have every champion and every skin. So I think obviously, I think in the perfect world, I'd get everything and every skin for free somehow. But I think it's the right balance of the needs of the business and the needs of the consumer. I think is as good of a balance as they can probably get.
I mean, for me, I'm not someone who spends a lot of money in free-to-play games. I kind of pride myself on the fact that I'm going to get as much in this game as I can without spending a single cent. However, I mean, what I'm probably going to do, which I wasn't going to do because I'm going to be playing this game, is maybe buy StarCraft 2. The expansions, maybe get the Diablo expansion. And I mean, if you get a lot of people playing this game, it's great advertising for all of their other games. If you start playing this game and you're really into playing Uther, or you're really into playing, the Witch Doctor for Diablo, it may get someone who isn't buying any Blizzard games to buy one of those games just because they like the character. So there's a lot of synergy involved. I mean, Blizzard for so long was really just 3 games. And now, they've got Hearthstone involved, they've got Heroes of the Storm involved, and I think it's kind of like it's what what you see so much in cross marketing and things like that.
Yeah, I also like the fact that they're kind of taking a cue from Hearthstone, where there might be like daily quests that allow you to kind of earn currency a little bit faster. I know that's kind of the primary way I earn my gold in Hearthstone, to buy new packs. I don't buy any packs other than an initial set that I had done just to kind of get myself started. What type of quests do you guys think we might see? Or like win so many games with a specific hero that's on the rotation? What would you like to see?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, pretty much the similar things that you have in Hearthstone. Winning matches in general. Using certain like types of like in Hearthstone, right? There's a daily for casting 40 spells. So like in Heroes, which is a MOBA, I could see it being like use 40 crowd control abilities or something, you know what I mean? Like so I can see all kinds of they have so many avenues that they could approach for daily type quests or objectives, if you will, in order to earn bonus currency.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they can do lots of neat things too, especially to introduce people to the game, like become the Dragon Knight, you know, in that, you know, become that in that objective, or survive X amount of time with this many coins in, you know, in that map, or you know,
or play a certain map X amount of times.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many good ways that they can take that, and that's one thing that League does not have, is a way that to really kind of incentivize doing things that you don't normally do. Like I've been maining support for about 6 months now, and I could still just be maining support. I had no reason to start doing top lane other than the fact that it was something that interested me. But that can be pretty punitive, because it can be scary to go into something you don't know in a game that can be as competitive as MOBAs are, where it only is really PvP. And this is kind of a good way to kind of have the carrot on the stick, so to speak, of, well, hey, like, try this different battleground type. It'll be worth, you know, getting it into. And I think by doing that with everyone, I think that will make the culture a lot more positive in the sense of how it views different things and how forgiving it's going to be when you do something you haven't done, because everybody will have tried to have done that same thing and struggled when they first did it. So I think that might help, you know, be kind of another tool to combat that that fan base that a lot of MOBAs have that, you know, can be known to be a little bit negative.
I mean, one thing that Rem touched on a little bit, and I think Guild Wars 2 did very well, was that they had their dailies really set up to teach you how to play the game. And I remember one thing Guild Wars 2 did is, I think one of their dailies, they would kind of rotate through the different abilities you could use. One of them was like dodge. Dodge an attack successfully 20 times, and especially with so many people like me who were playing it coming from World of Warcraft, dodging isn't something that I think to even do. But that was something that like basically built up that skill for me. So if they can do things like you mentioned, crowd control or dodging, or you know, if they're finding that, you know, people are playing a certain class and they're just you know zerging through one ability and really not using the other ones, which could actually make them go from being a decent beginner player to a great player. If they could use that method, I think that would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I think the other point that they brought up too is that giving you extra currency for playing with your friends kind of really goes with the creed of Blizzard this year. Everything they're doing is to work towards people playing with their friends more and more. And, you know, building a community and getting people to play games together is really what they want to do. And to say, hey, you'll be able to purchase heroes faster when you're playing with your friends, I think is a great thing for them to add on to there.
I agree.
Friends that game together, play together, or stay together, or something.
If you game together, you're gaming
you game together. Yeah,
So
I mean, you know, it's what games have become now. I mean, if you're not playing with people that you know you're not playing, when people that I play with leave WoW, I unsub from WoW for a while until people I know are playing again. And that's a killer way to do it.
Do you remember being like a little kid and playing Mario, and you could only play with one other person, right? And in my family, this was always a big problem because I have 4 older brothers. So we would constantly argue, no, I'm Mario, you'll be Luigi, and we'll swap. And like it used to start fights all the time. So like if you go back on that, and that's in the 90s, and now here we are where we have games where we can play with 4 other people, 5 other people, 10 other people, 25 other people, or 24 other people. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's kind of like the the goal of games nowadays anyways. You know, we have Call of Duty. You play with tons of other people. You like no matter what types of games you like, I think that companies in general are going after this whole play with people, but not just a couple of people, lots and lots and lots of.
It makes you want to make more friends, and not a lot of games do that. But Blizzard's games always do.
Yes.
Now, another thing that they keep bringing up, and I don't understand why. I guess coming from the MOBA background, I understand why. But these people keep talking about it, about the sort of story that we're going to see here. I know at first talking to David about Heart of the Storm and him coming on the podcast, he's like, "Oh, how are they going to explain this?" I think since then, playing the game, he's kind of seen that this isn't all about story. So, David, do you know why people are? Do you think? I'm sorry. Do you have do you know why people are kind of sticking to, what kind of story are we looking at here, and they haven't kind of dropped it at this point?
Well, I think for a lot of people, like in Heroes of the Storm, they've been pretty upfront that there's not a lot of story. Like it's how did they put it at BlizzCon? Because Nexus, that's their explanation for everything. So, but I think for a lot of people, I know when I play a game, if the story sucks, the game's not going to keep me. And if the story's great, it's going to keep me longer than I would otherwise stay. Secret World was a game I played that really the gameplay I didn't enjoy very much, but I love the story so much I pushed through. But I think once people start realizing that this isn't an MMO, and that this isn't, an RPG, that this is a different type of game, I think people are going to get over that. Just the little bit I've been playing in League of Legends, I'm not sitting there worried. I don't even look at the lore because I really don't care at all. I'm just more concerned about the abilities. It's just something, it's basically just a comfort zone that people just have to get out of a little bit and realize that it complements the game with all the story that you like already. It's not that story. Hearthstone's an example that there is no story whatsoever, but it's a card game. I don't need, when I'm playing poker, I don't need to know the story behind the jacks and the queens and the kings. I'm just playing it.
And
It's a really good analogy.
A little insider scoop. So I got to be an ear in on a conversation of a couple Blizzard employees that were talking about the Heroes of the Storm cinematic that we all thought was fantastic. And I guess internally they were being very, very critical of it, and a lot of people internally didn't like it because they thought, this isn't Blizzard, there's no story, there's nothing going on here other than some people shooting each other and making action happen. And they were really, really not happy with how the cinematic turned out, a fair number of them internally from what I understand. And it wasn't until BlizzCon when they showed off that trailer and everyone erupted cheering that they realized it doesn't have to be that, and people aren't necessarily looking for it to be that. If you want lore, it's there in the other sources, but people are looking for this to be Blizzard All-Stars as it was conceptualized. We don't need this massive the content for Zeratul, why he's in a battleground with the Lich King. That doesn't need to happen. I'm totally content with the fact that I can be Zeratul and throw stuff at Diablo. That's cool enough. I don't always need it. Do I like it? Absolutely, and that's why I play the other games, read some novels, and look at other forms of the media. But they were equally surprised as us to find out that lore doesn't always have to be there. It's there, but it doesn't have to be there in every facet.
Exactly. I think that's kind of what David was getting at. The lore is already there. This is just like a side game. So when you used to play Final Fantasy or something, there were always side quests and mini games and stuff. This is just a mini game, a flavor addition. Granted, it's not inside of the games we're already playing, but that's really in essence what it is.
Yep.
So
that being said, I'm eagerly looking forward to someone trying to RP in Heroes of the Storm.
I think they said it really good when they did the Blizzard All-Stars cinematic, where it's for glory, gold, and ladder points, was it? Where it's obviously that's what the main reason for this is.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yes, ladder points are muy importante.
Yes, because they talked a lot about esports. I think the question we have later today, we kind of can touch on that a little bit, and we've touched on other shows. So other than that, was there anything else that kind of stood out in the interview for any of you?
I think those were the main points. Like, I like what they're doing with the store. Yeah, no, I think that's mainly it, really. It was kind of a short one, and it wasn't tons of information. One thing that they liked, and they talked about it. It's the panel on at BlizzCon a bit was what type of crowd they're trying to bring in, and they really reiterated the point that they brought up in BlizzCon and when they answered, the crowd that likes Heroes of the Storm. They aren't a company that has to do a bunch of research and figure out, okay, well, who's going to like this and how do we make it interesting to the people that are already playing this type of game or anything. And that's the thing that makes Blizzard good and a thing that makes a company like EA bad. They get it. They just need to make a game that's really fun, that they would love to play. And if it's good and if it's fun and if it's high quality, people will play it. It goes back to their mission statement. Think globally. What is it? I forget.
Act locally.
Yeah.
Act locally.
Yeah. Act locally. And make it for. I can't remember anymore. It was a while ago that I remember reading it. But they do it to make a fun game, and if you do that, people will follow, and people have followed. And I think this will be no different.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and move into our Hero Spotlight of the Week.
This is the Hero Spotlight.
And with this week, we're going to go into the lore and the abilities of Arthas. So I'm going to send it right over to David to kind of give us a little bit of lore about the hero.
Okay, I'm going to touch on Arthas. People who've played World of Warcraft and have gotten into it, I'm not going to go into super depth on it because I could be here for an hour. But just to give an overview of who Arthas, Lord of the Scourge, is. He was born a Prince of Lordaeron, which was the main human kingdom of the time at the time in Warcraft lore. He's really not a very good fighter when he's a kid. He's childhood friends with Varian Rin, who eventually becomes the High King of the Alliance. But whereas Varian's an excellent warrior, Arthas isn't so good, and it's kind of an insecurity that follows him throughout his life. He does become a student of Uther the Lightbringer, though, and becomes a paladin. Essentially, his role is he's the Mel Gibson to Uther's Danny Glover kind of thing. Uther's the steady older guy, and if you're thinking Star Wars, he's very much the Anakin figure from the prequels. Along the way to his destiny, he does meet Jaina Proudmoore, who's an aspiring mage, falls in love with her. They have a brief romance, but they kind of go their separate ways. Really, the big turning point for him is he's out on kind of just a routine mission fighting orcs and runs into a big issue, which is that a lot of his kingdom is succumbing to this plague that's not only killing them, but also raising them into the undead, which are basically just zombies walking around. Now, Arthas kills the wizard, the necromancer, who's named Kel'Thuzad, but finds out that apparently it's a demon lord who's working for the Burning Legion, who's really the big bad of the Warcraft universe. Now, he's gone off to search for this demon in kind of like a medium-sized town in his kingdom called Stratholme. When he goes there, he finds out that this entire town has already succumbed to this plague that's not only going to kill them, but will eventually raise them to the undead. Uther would like him to look for an option that's going to save them. He kind of makes a rash decision and figures it's better off to kill them all. This really leads to a split with Uther, and he actually disbands the Paladins under his royal decree. He does catch up to this demon, but the demon escapes up to Northrend. If you're not familiar with World of Warcraft, Northrend is essentially the kind of the Arctic continent, the continent that's constantly frozen except for a few parts. And Arthas decides to follow him despite the king's orders. He does follow him and basically brings a small group that encounters a lot of problems up there. They're all on their own. Basically pulls a Hernan Cortez, burns all the boats behind him, says, "I'm going to kill this demon no matter what." and it's this single-mindedness that really is his downfall. There's a weapon there called Frostmourne. If you've seen any of the gameplay with Arthas, it's the giant, far too large for anyone to carry sword. But this sword also is essentially cursed. As soon as he starts wielding it, he does become a lot more powerful, but he starts hearing voices from this being called the Lich King. I'm not going to get into too much as to where the Lich King comes from, but he's a pawn of the Burning Legion as well. The Lich King gets him to kill this Demon Lord Mal'Ganis. And so you think that's great. That's the heroic end. He did his job. He went up there, killed the demon. In the game, it's a really cool moment when he comes back because there's a big parade for Arthas. They're welcoming back the conquering prince, the conquering hero. He does show up, but instead of greeting his father, he just kills him. And he's not leading this conquering army. He's actually leading the undead now, and he's working for the Lich King. He basically wipes out his whole people because now he's working as a Death Knight for the Lich King. He then, pretty much on the orders of the Lich King, heads off to the Elven area and runs into the main general of their defense, who's Sylvanas Windrunner. I'm not going to get into too much detail because we anticipate at some point Sylvanas is going to be a hero in this game, and this story really takes it from there, and it's really Sylvanas' story from there on in. There's a lot that Arthas continues to do. He does eventually merge with this entity called the Lich King and kind of becomes the Lich King himself. And then we fight him all the way through an expansion in World of Warcraft. So I'm going to leave it at there so we can talk a little bit about some of his abilities and how you can use him to slay people in Heroes of the Storm.
Yes.
Woo! So we actually had a question from Lore Walker Tahu from the Lore Walkers Roundtable podcast. And the question is, how closely will Arthas' Heroes of the Storm abilities resemble that of those he has in World of Warcraft?
And I think one thing about it is they're definitely trying to get the feeling, even though there might be a couple missing. Once we go through the abilities that we've seen that he has, we can kind of touch on what we might want to see in the future in terms of what they're really missing for iconic spells. He's a warrior type, which, like we've discussed before, means he can get right up into combat, survive some hits, and also deal a little bit of damage, but he won't be the primary damage dealer of the group. His first ability will be the Frost Strike, where he strikes a target enemy, damaging and slowing the target. And if that target dies, enemies nearby take damage. So it's kind of you're slowing them, so you kind of keep up with them to kill the enemy, but then also dealing AoE damage. I assume the AoE damage will work on minions, so it kind of gives them a little bit of ability to push the lane, take out some of the minions.
Now, what he also has is an ability called Howling Blast. Arthas is going to release a Howling Blast in the target area, and at that point, the enemies are slowed and damaged. So it's kind of like a CC and damaging ability. It's kind of your classic, a bit of a range ability that's also going to be a bit AoE as well.
Mm-hmm. And the one I'm excited about, so Summon Sindragosa. This is the one that kind of caught my attention during the gameplay video that they had. So it's a ranged ability. So he calls in Sindragosa and in a targeted line, and she sprays ice, throughout that line. It's going to deal, of course, magic damage to minions and champions alike, or different objectives in the area, but it'll also slow them as well as she flies over. So that's going to be pretty effective in fights also.
And the thing with Sindragosa as well is that she's actually a blue dragon, the consort of one of the most powerful dragons in Warcraft. And she died in Northrend. Really had nothing to do with Arthas at all, but his power as the Lich King is so powerful that he can raise her up, and she has to essentially serve him.
Yes. And then he has an ability called Hungering Cold. When activated, enemies near Arthas are going to take damage. This ability will also drain Arthas' mana, so it looks like it might be one of his key AoE type abilities to help get rid of lots of people all at once.
And like we've talked about, there's going to be a talent system out there where you can actually take the ultimate, which is actually the one that Xantar talked about, the Summon Sindragosa, and switch it with another. And that'll be Army of the Dead. and that's where he brings forth an army from the dead that will attack enemies around Arthas. AoEs instead of a slowing ability that the Summon Sindragosa did.
Yeah, and one of his heroic talents is also, any unit he deals a killing blow to will get resurrected to fight for him. So, I mean, that's a classic Arthas ability, raising the dead to serve him, and you really get the feel for the character with that as well.
And one thing I really like about these abilities is depending on which of these ultimate you take really changes the flavor of how this champion's going to play out and how you're going to play him. If you take Army of the Dead, he's going to be very much that just in the middle of the fight, doing tons of damage, killing lots of people. Like, he's going to really be about one-on-one dueling people. But if you take Summon Sindragosa, he can all of a sudden take on a very different role, and he can kind of become what we talked about last episode in other MOBAs, being the jungler or a roamer, so to speak. So going from lane to lane, not really staying in one, but all of a sudden he shows up in your lane. Guess what? Summon Sindragosa. Sindragosa flies down, you're slowed. And then as soon as that slow wears off, Howling Blast, you're slowed again, and he's doing so much damage on top of the damage that the other person that was already fighting against you's done. Hey, in about 5 seconds, you've been not only slowed, but you're dead. So that's a really kind of cool use that they're having with these ultimates, and being able to choose one or another that really changes how a champion is going to play.
And other MOBAs like League of Legends, you're choosing masteries, so you basically have talent trees like old World of Warcraft that let you define your role. And Heroes, it really looks like what's going to define your role is this ultimate ability that you choose. And yes, his other abilities have a lot of slow, a decent amount of AoE, but the ultimate ability, you basically choose between the two ways that he can go. And I really like that. Now, in terms of how this matches up to his iconic abilities, he really lines up well with a lot of Death Knight abilities, Frost Strike, Howling Blast, as well as abilities that we would see from Arthas himself. I mean, the cinematic for Wrath of the Lich King was him summoning Sindragosa from the ground and sending her upon armies of people.
Yeah, these aren't all necessarily like Arthas abilities, but they're all abilities that will feel Arthas and will feel Death Knight and will really kind of fit what he is and how he we know him to be. So they might not be things that maybe he's necessarily done in terms of encounter mechanics. Like, there's no Defile here, but these are all things that we could easily understand Arthas to be able to do and that we could have seen in the fight, and it doesn't feel out of place.
No, I was going to say the same thing. Where's Defile? Defile, I was so looking forward to having Defile with Arthas, but you can't have everything.
Well, that being said, they've also said that they're going to work on different ultimate abilities, different abilities. Maybe you'll be able to change your first or second ability where they'll put in a Defile, and you'll be able to do that at some point. I think that would be pretty cool where, a year down the road, they add in a couple more abilities that you can choose from to kind of change the playstyle of each character up. You don't see that in any of the other MOBAs. They might adjust a character because he's underpowered, so they give him a new ability, but they don't still give you the option of the old abilities that are there. So, I mean, in general, I think it's he looks like he's going to be a strong player. He's going to be fun to play as. What do you think of the skins, Rem? I know you're a big skin person.
I like the fact that you can have Arthas as the Lich King Arthas, or you can have Arthas as Prince Arthas. What other skins are available? I haven't been able to look at that
I've just shown the two, I believe.
I did see another one. It's a corrupted Arthas. It looks very Old God Corruption.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I could see that. But no, I do really like that. I probably won't play Arthas. It's not my cup of tea, if you will. But I like that I can play the old version, Prince Arthas before, when he was friends with Varian and he was mostly a good guy. I like that better because Paladins and, that era was probably one of my favorite eras of World of Warcraft, so I would prefer that Arthas, but I know a lot of people really like Arthas as the Lich King, even though he's a villain, but it's just more iconic, so it's cool. Choices are great.
No.
He's very much the iconic, to me at least. He's the iconic World of Warcraft villain. If you grab someone who hasn't played the game, name a villain in World of Warcraft. If they're able to, it's probably the Lich King.
Mm-hmm. Now, I also, looking at like the Witch Doctor here that we haven't talked about yet, they have the alternate skin that makes it from the female Witch Doctor, the male Witch Doctor. I think we might see something along that line, say with like Uther, where they might have an Arthas skin. So he has the paladin abilities, but you see him as Arthas. Do you think that's something we might have a chance at seeing at some point?
I don't know. Like, as far as, I guess, what you mean is, like, really changing who the character is, I don't think so. I don't think we'll see. Because the point of Heroes of the Storm is that we're playing these characters for who they are. Yeah, we can get a little fun and dress them up like a roller derby girl for, what is it, Sonya, I think, but it's still the same character. Like, I don't think that they'll bend it too much outside of that.
Mm-hmm. Though I do have beef with the skin here. I've got a little bone to pick with the artistic team, and I had it as soon as they showed it on the stage, and I was way up near the front, and I wanted to yell at them and throw a water bottle, but I didn't. And they talked about the classic Lich King skin, and it's not exactly what the Lich King is in Warcraft, and he looks a little different. And one of the differences is there's some gold in there, there's some like royal blue, and they kind of took the Lich King and some of like the colors of Arthas's past and brought it in and kind of changed the armor a little bit. We have old Arthas as an alternate skin. Why are we making the like badass Lich King one look like something that's kind of like not watered down, but he looked so badass before? Not that he doesn't look badass now, but like, why do we need to bring in these yellows and all that when that's what the other skin's for? It's not what he classic looks like. It's like this amalgamation of all the Arthases put into one. And it kind of seems weird to me, because why don't you just make different skins of each of that for people that like the different things? Like, I just want him to look like the Lich King. I don't want him to look like Arthas 4.0 X, all the Arthases of different timelines did a fusion dance and then like became this one super Lich King. Like, I just wanted it to look just like he did in the game, because I thought that was pretty cool. So I don't know. I'm not super happy with what they did with it. I'll still definitely play him, but I would have liked a little bit more clear definition to the different skins.
Well, you know what's interesting too? If you look at the website, I don't think they refer to him as the Lich King anywhere.
Nope.
He's always called Arthas. Even his subtitle is Lord of the Scourge, and I'm like, that's kind of odd. Like, I would have thought that they would. I mean, just use this very, very very famous name for him. It's strange. I'm interested to see if there's anything to that.
I see.
Almost like they're going to make a Lich King hero all on his own.
Mm-hmm.
No, see, I doubt that, though. I think
that's what's going to have to define.
I don't remember where I heard it, but I think there was some mention of why they're calling him Arthas versus calling him the Lich King, which even to non-World of Warcraft players is probably more recognizable than calling him Arthas, right? But I think they went with that because that is his name. And we're playing a game that is about the heroes, and they all... Like, why have Arthas be the Lich King when he was Arthas? You know what I mean? Like, I think they had something like it was an identity type thing. So
yeah, like maybe the Lich King should have been one skin, Paladin Arthas should have been another skin, and then you get into like Marine Arthas or Diablo Art, like some of the other weird ones, but like have that distinction a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit more as to like, this is Arthas in this stage of his life. This is Arthas in this stage of his life. And that's kind of what I think I was looking for sure.
Definitely. Now, before we really move on, I know we really hit the lore real quick. I would recommend to anybody that wants to kind of really get into it is to read Arthas: Rise of the Lich King, the book by Christy Golden, because that's going to go
Very
into
good.
detail about everything. I mean, we didn't hit some key points that happened just because time, but
Tons of them.
yeah. There's a lot of cool things. Him and Invincible, his horse and stuff like that we can definitely hit on. Maybe at another time when we're going to talk about him and maybe the mount that he gets. So next we're going to kind of move on to our next segment.
Heroes here! Heroes here! No heroes needed here! No heroes wanted!
So every week we're going to take a look into a topic for all those new players out there. And this week we're going to go over about features that are on the map. The first one that we kind of look into, what are we going to look into, Rem?
The lanes. What are lanes? What do you do in a lane? No, I won't go into total details. So the thing about lanes, before I get started, is that every time you play, lanes can still be played differently than what is the standard. But I'm just going to give you the basic new player standard way that you would play the lanes. So on the map, there's 3 lanes in a typical MOBA. Most maps are 3 lanes. There's a lane that goes through the top, across the top of the map, so we call that top lane. And then there's a lane that goes through the middle of the map, and then a lane on the bottom. So we, to be easy, top, mid, and bottom, or bot for short. And generally, how you want to play them, this is just standard. I'm telling you, there are so many different ways to play lanes, but we're just going to go super easy, super standard. So top lane, you would have a tanky kind of character, somebody who can do damage but also take lots of damage really well. So you have a bruiser, that's what they call it. Tank or bruiser is kind of the term that you would call that type of character. And then for mid lane, I believe that you send kind of like a ranged champion, right? Is that what
Yeah,
we
you're going to typically find like mage casters or assassins.
Yeah, like a mage caster, an assassin, somebody who can just do lots of damage and maybe have a little bit of self-sustainment, just a little bit. And then bottom lane, you would send an attack damage, so a physical damage or a mage, just somebody who could do lots of damage. And then also a support character with that player on the bottom lane. And the support character is not always just a healer. Sometimes the support characters are characters who can do lots of crowd control and stuns and slows and help the damaging character on the bottom lane get a lot of kills. And then your 5th player would be somebody called a jungler. And junglers have varying responsibilities depending on your group makeup, but they play the jungle. They will sneak and steal kills, called ganking, and all kinds of other stuff. So that's like it all in a nutshell, super basic. And like I said earlier, sometimes depending on your team makeup, that setup might not work. Sometimes you'll have 2 support characters, and so you have to like change up the way everything works. But I'm trying to be basic here.
Rem, quick question, and I have an idea in terms of like who goes in which lane, but what's the reasoning behind it? Like, why would I want a tank in the top versus the middle? Like, is there any specific gameplay reason for it, or is that just how everybody does it?
To be honest with you, and if I'm wrong, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this. I don't really know. So I'm going to go with, I think it's just because that's what everybody has been doing. And so like with a video game like this, right, we call this the meta game. What people do in competitive play is called the meta game. And the meta game changes a lot. You see it in Hearthstone, right? So people are playing paladins all the time, and then people will build decks to beat paladins, and then that deck becomes the new meta deck that people are using in the metagame. And so it shifts a lot. So it could be a lot to do with how people just played and what became kind of the standard. And so, you always send a tanky bruiser to the top because the other team is going to have a tanky bruiser on the top. You know what I mean? So you have to like counter that and stuff like that. And so it's kind of, I'm just going to go ahead and just say it has to deal with the metagame and what people are doing at very competitive levels and how we match that.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit, like in terms of some of the reasoning why it happens. And your outer lanes can be swapped, and you'll actually see this happen sometimes. And sometimes your top lane or your bruiser will actually go bot lane 1 versus 2. So you might have a bruiser versus an AD carry and a support. And the reason they might do that is because your experience often is shared in the lane between the amount of champions that are in there. So that one guy is going to level up faster than the two. And sometimes that's a strategy that happens. But typically, it actually starts because of the buffs that are available in the jungle on either lane. And that's kind of why it started in a certain way back, in the elder years of old. The duelists were really on their own island, in top lane, and they're pretty far separated from a lot of the action. So you typically would have duelists that kind of just do their own thing for the majority of the match until 20 minutes in, where everybody starts to meet as a group. Your mid laner, the reason why you always have an assassin type character or a mage type character in mid lane with some sustain, as Rem was saying, is often what they'll do is if they start to win their lane, because they're middle, they can start going to the other lanes. And they can start pushing these other lanes as well. They can start roaming down, and let's say I push a wave of minions, and now all of a sudden there's none in my lane. Well, I've got nothing to do. And if I'm winning that lane and I already took down a tower, I might go down to bot lane, and now all of a sudden it's 3v2, and I can continue to bring that momentum to another lane. And so that's why those type of characters fit really well in mid lane. Junglers, there's tons of different types. You have tanky junglers, you have high attack junglers, high mobility. Yeah, there's tons. But in bot lane, it's always been kind of traditionally a support and a AD carry, because they're very dependent of each other. AD carries are very much the glass cannons. They can get killed really easily, so they're partnered up with the support to give some of that sustain or provide some harass, with the support, throwing some occasional hits on enemy champions or peeling, which we'll talk about on another episode, and making plays in that sense. So they are always very much kind of prototypical in the way that they function that way. Kind of like how in WoW, once upon a time, if you were a warrior, you were absolutely useless without a priest. Like, you were nothing if you didn't have a priest, because you could maybe hit like something 2 or 3 times, but then things would just kill you because you had no way to do anything defensively. But so it's kind of been in that sense. Yeah, and I talked about last episode too, like how things can really change that. Things like items in League of Legends have changed that. We've seen that one single episode or item that I talked about last episode, making all of a sudden 2 versus 2 top lane, 1v1 mid, and 2v2 bottom, and no jungle, become the way to do things, and that changes. But there's a lot that went into how lanes were, I guess, established in the green roots of sorts.
That's right.
But that brings us into what we have in lanes, and one of the things that you're going to find in different lanes and outside of lanes in some of the maps that are battlegrounds, in Heroes of the Storm or what are called creeps or minions. These come in various shapes and sizes and strength and weaknesses. In League of Legends, which is where I can kind of bring my experience with them. You have kind of 4 main types. You have your melee minions, which kind of are sword and shield. They have a lot of health and a fair amount of damage, but they've got to be right against you to do anything. You have your caster minions, which stand behind the guys with the shields, and they'll throw some spells out. And you also have a tank minion, which come out occasionally through waves, and they have a lot of health, a lot of damage, but they're only one of them, so they kind of lead the charge in that sense. What will happen is if in League of Legends is if I take out an inhibitor, which is behind their third turret in a lane, then I start spawning super minions. And these are really, really big guys that take tons of damage, deal a lot of damage. They're pretty slow, albeit, but they bring in a lot of extra pressure into a lane, because even if you're a high damage, champion, if it's just one of you, it takes a decent amount of time to take one of those guys down, which is a lot of time where you're not somewhere else. So they can help apply a lot of pressure. But creeps in Heroes of the Storm are going to behave in a very different way. Creeps in League of Legends, you have to get the last hit on them to actually get the gold that they achieve. You get some passive amount of gold just as time passes, but your gold income typically will come from last hitting minions and getting kills. Well, in Heroes of the Storm, they're not doing that. You're not having the last hit minions anymore. So now it's just going to be a case of, do I want to keep the lane in one spot, maybe near my tower, so somebody could come in and come around and flank the enemy and make a gank and do that? Or do I want to push the lane, kill their creeps as fast as possible, and get up to their tower and do some damage? So no longer are you going to have to worry about last hitting. You're just really getting into that ebb and flow of, how do I want, where do I want myself, my partner if I have one, and the enemy in the lane? Where is best suited for us to be in terms of the logistics of that way? So that's going to help a lot in that sense, and kind of simplify a little bit, what goes on in the lane. I'm really interested to try it and see how that plays out.
Yeah, and just really quick before we move on, because I know we have to move on, but I think that that's a really great topic, the whole last hitting, not last hitting, just in general. And I think that we should definitely touch on that alone, like as how that affects the metagame and endgame, if you will. We need to make that a show. But moving on.
Sorry, David. You.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, in terms of towers, and I'm assuming we're talking about turrets and that type of thing. Again, my MOBA experience, I'm kind of this section's a little bit for me as well. In terms of towers, these are stationary items that are on the map. They hit very hard. But it's basically, you're going to have to get through these in order to get to your eventual objective. Basically, the strategy behind it is to make sure that you're not going in on this alone, because if it targets you and it starts hitting you, it's going to drain your health very, very fast. So a lot of the strategy behind it is to go in, clear everything out, make sure ideally that there's no other champions around as well. Let your minions take the damage that are coming in from the turret or the tower, and basically just burn it down as fast as you can, and then move on to the next.
Mm-hmm. And then another feature of the map are the jungles. I mean, it's very simple. It's the area between the lanes covered in forest. Now, you're going to see neutral creeps or minions, however you want to call them, in that area. And in League of Legends, we'll go into jungling techniques if need be. But what we'll be looking at is, you kill the neutral minions to either get a buff, get some gold, so that way you're getting gold and not taken away from your teammates. In Heroes, it looks like you might be doing that in order to get those neutral minions to fight for you and kind of help to push your lanes. So we don't know if there's going to be like a designated jungler in Heroes or not. We'll see that once we kind of move into the beta.
Which willing to buy beta keys, Blizzard, if you're listening. Willing to buy. I'll give you top dollar.
But so the last thing that's kind of, map features, basic stuff, is the Nexus or your base, or back in the days of Warcraft 3 Dota, the Ancient. And basically this is the home. This is your home where you start from, or your enemy's home where they start from. And the goal is to get there and destroy it. And that's that.
And that is that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. We're not going to be able to really get to any questions this week, but we'll hold them off till next week. Rem, where are people able to find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Remedeezy, REMEDEEZY, and then, I run Blizzmaster.com, so there. And the Blizzmaster Show, which is the official podcast vidcast of Blizzmaster.com. So that's where you can find me.
David, what have you been up to? Where can people find you as well?
Well, I'm going to actually have a piece coming out on blissmaster.com where I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about Uther and Arthas and how they compare to each other and what a great buddy cop team they are until one kills the other. And basically, then I'm just gonna be around in World of Warcraft and League of Legends, and I'll see everybody next week.
Xantar?
So you can find me on Twitter at the Xantar. That's with an X, not a Z. But also I'll be doing a lot of streaming on Twitch over the next week or so, primarily Tuesday and Wednesday, but definitely you can find me on some night times at twitch.tv/thexantar. I'll be streaming a lot of League of Legends, potentially some WoW, a lot of PS4 games, because that's a thing that people, I guess, are interested in these days. I don't know. I got one, and a lot of people apparently can't get one. So, hey, I'm going to rub it in their faces by streaming it. So you can find me there as well.
And for me, you can reach me at Adam. You can reach me at Geek of Random on Twitter. You can reach the show right at the Nexus Podcast and send any questions either to that Twitter or to our email address, show@heroesofthenexus.com. For the podcast itself, you can either watch it on Twitch or YouTube. You can download it with iTunes, Stitcher, and the Windows Marketplace, and directly from heroesofthenexus.com, where we have forums, and you can talk about the heroes, you can talk about the podcast, you can tell us what you like, what you dislike. We, like Rem said, are members of Blizzmaster, so come and take a look at us over at Blizzmaster. And you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
May all your ganks be successful.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, and stop.
Woohoo!
Awesome.
Woo!
So I think
You might have some fun with my audio.
Why?
Not that it's going to be super bad, but I can't tell, but just based on the wavelength, but I see like little blips whenever you guys talk. I don't think you will really be able to hear it, but you might just have to listen to it, or just a little bit of it just to hear, like mine alone. It's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I actually go through and if you're not talking, I wipe out any noises in the background.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
I'm very meticulous with that.
Fantastic. You are like
week,
I am.
Last week was so much fun because I could hear the click, 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 because you muted Skype, but your Audacity still picks up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So I think I avoided that this time.
It was it was actually kind of funny because at first I'm like, wow, he kept saying like little jabs in and out because I just look over everything really quick to see if I need to do any noise reduction or whatever, and then I listen, I'm like, oh, those are the clicking of his
That's
ridiculously
so
loud keyboard.
Although I'm guessing the wavelength visual probably made it pretty obvious what it was.
So
Did David get a chance to say his Twitter?
I don't think he did.
It's okay. Next time around.
Well, you should say it now, and then he can edit it into the end of the show.
Yeah, if you want to just record a little thing.
Sure.
And you can find me.
And you can find me at Berlan CTR. That's 2 F 2 A's.
See, there you go.
Yeah, because then I can take it out.
And Adam just cropped that.
Thanks, Adam. Honestly, I don't even know how to pronounce my character's name. It was one of those things that looked good on paper.
I think 2 A's. I would think of Brillan.
Brillan?
Brillan would be 1 A, I think.
Brillan kind of also sounds like I'm from the hinterlands as well.
Canada.
Brillan is good.
But it sounds like
Yeah, I like Brillan.
Brillan,
we definitely have a name.
Kind of
for the
looks
show,
elvish then.
given
That's
to us
it.
by
Chat
Xantar.
room, you were here first. You heard it
Gamers who
first.
game together, game together.
you said
That's
it.
right.
Yes. Gosh,
I'm gonna
Adam.
live that down.
That's going to be on the back of the Nexus t-shirt.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is our official
There we
saying.
go. Friends who play together, game together, Xantar 2013. Awesome.
You saw it first.
Oh man.
Oh Lord.
Oh,
That
God.
was
I want Heroes of the Storm. You know what I'm afraid of? This is relatively off the record, but I'm afraid that this game isn't gonna come out for another year. Are you guys having that
No.
kind of same
I
feels?
don't think so.
No, I think we're gonna see the beta. I think early next year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe even sooner than that.
if not, you guys have to start coming up with some really good topics.
Because did any of you guys play it at BlizzCon?
Rem did.
I did.
Did it feel pretty polished?
App available. Okay, it felt polished in the sense that the one map that I got to see was great. The hero selection was great, but to me, the UI and other things surrounding just the game in general, it didn't feel like a finished game to me.
Yeah.
However,
So that's enough, I think, to make it into a beta. As long as that core is there, they can
So I think what we saw at BlizzCon was a one package, not even alpha. Okay, think about it like this: when you play an arcade game, right? You play a lot of arcade games, especially way back in the day, would only allow you to play certain levels. But if you bought that game for Super Nintendo, there were more. It was a full game. So that's what I'm saying. It felt like a port, a micro size of a video game that we'll have, but it wasn't the whole game. There's no way.
Well, they could even do a staged beta, where it's closed, friends and family beta of the core, just that map, and then maybe they open it to closed beta and they bring in some of the other beta battle. They kind of do it as it comes, because they've got a pretty big team behind this.
I think they're smart enough too that they know that they've got the ball rolling now. You can't go back at this point. It's up on the website.
You can't drop that cinematic bomb and be like, boom, 2 years later.
But, to be devil's advocate here, they had it at BlizzCon 2011. They had Blizzard All-Stars. It was completely different looking than what it looks like now, too, also.
True.
So this game has been in development for a very long time, and because of the trademarking issues and yada, 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 they have had issues about getting it out to us. And I bet a lot of people got super hyped up about it at the last BlizzCon. And then here we are 2 years later. It's a brand new game. It totally looks different. I mean, it's still the same game, but it's a new version of the same game. Totally looks different. Has a new
cinematic name. Is
we still don't have a beta.
I mean, what I would say is the main difference between the one that we saw 2 years ago and the one that you guys got to play this year is 2 years ago they had the idea that this was going to be a arcade style game that you just download, part of StarCraft 2, and now they've made it into its own standalone game. So
exactly.
And they've seen the esports, which wasn't really there before. And that cinematic alone, that takes 10, 11 months to make. And that is an expensive thing to make, which means they don't do that until they have to. They don't like spending that money. So it would be weird for them to be like, boom, here's this thing we've been working on forever that costs a lot, in terms of creative employment, labor hours costs, and then okay guys, they only have so much more time. They already missed the bandwagon on this so huge that they've only got so much more. League is continually still growing. Dota, while obviously not as big as League, is also growing. That pie is starting to get eaten pretty quick. They've got to do something somewhat soon-ish, TM, before they miss their chance even further, I guess. They've got to get it while this hype is still hot. And the hype is super hot right now.
Right.
I wonder if this is some... Oh, sorry, Adam.
I was just going to say, two kind of things, because Joe Brewer had mentioned, Titan, for one, they've never announced anything about what it is. And Ghost, before they had a cinematic, they scrapped it. So those were two big things. And then Ro had actually tweeted about, is it too soon to really start the podcasting end of this? And if we're going to be able to continue putting out quality podcasts, well, at least that's what I picked from him, because it was obviously it's Twitter. The podcast quality, I think, in the long run, if this doesn't come out anytime soon, and I think that I just couldn't put into a Twitter thing what I thought. I think it's important for the podcast to start now, talk about what's going on, get kind of a synergy going between the hosts. We're still working out who talks when, stuff like that. So
and
that
with
way,
Blizzard.
Yeah. They want to see who's out there and who's podcasting, what community is getting built up prior to putting that release out. Because it's not like putting out a new WoW expansion when they're like, okay, WoW Insider, hopefully Blizzmaster, all these places automatically get betas. They need to figure out who's going to be the people that are going to be talking about it and building hype during the beta.
Well, and I mean, even for just stuff what to do, Holy Shat, which was on like no one's radar. Nobody knows who the hell we are. Like when we talk to like Zarm or Bashok or stuff, like I've had some like back and forth with them like, why are we doing this, or why are you guys doing this way, or hey, what do you think about this idea? And like they've actually gone to teams and been like, oh hey, like what do they think? Like especially for this game that's not out and doesn't really have a good way for people to talk to Blizzard about it. Podcasts are probably going to be the best way for that like channel of communication to kind of come through in kind of a compressed format, I guess. Like forums, sure, but forums that you're doing a lot of sifting to find any gold in there.
Yeah.
But we're kind of a filter.
They don't even have Heroes
sort of.
forums yet on the Hero site.
Hmm?
They don't even have forums on the Hero site.
Well,
yet.
and that's just it. Like, and even when they do, like, it's going to take a while for them to figure out who actually contributes to the thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I
they need
still don't
community
go
badges
in.
before they put those
Yeah,
up too.
I still don't go in the WoW forums, and I've been playing the game for 9 years. Like,
Remember too, though, there's a lot of developers that came off of Titan, right? I think
Yes.
there's a lot of people that came off of Titan, and that's going to accelerate everything.
look
Which,
at
I mean-
look at Worlds 2013 for League had more viewership than the Oscars.
Oh my god, I
That-
talked
yeah.
about that
Wow.
on Twitter earlier.
That's amazing.
It was
That's
a couple of days
huge.
ago. I had a debate with a few people on Twitter of whether, esports was really viable as like television entertainment. I don't have time to really go into all of this. But I did make that point, what was it? Yeah, it was the League of Legends season 2. What's the most recent season they had?
They just finished season 3.
Season 3. Freaking 8 million something people tuned into that, and 500,000 people watched the Olympics last year.
Yeah.
And we're talking not
Like, there's
really,
no argument. Proof is in the pudding.
really essentially related things. We're talking about people who get paid to play a sport, whether you consider gaming a sport or not. People who get paid to play sports, and then us as regular people watching it.
Yeah.
So
Average
here-
national level player makes about 70K a year.
Mm-hmm.
Average world level player makes about 90 to 120,000 a year.
So I think this is the biggest problem with video games becoming television, and I think it would be great because obviously we see of StarCraft over in Korea. With League of Legends, the fact that a match can last an hour and it's hard to say when to go to commercial, that's going to be the trick into figuring out how to do it. Now, being a big fan of looking towards Heroes of the Storm, those quick 15 to 20 minute matches, I think that's going to help a lot with people being able to stay and watch. Because I haven't watched a lot of League of Legends esports. I'm more of a StarCraft esport person. But what turns me away is you can't have as many teams.
Yeah.
Because you have
A StarCraft match is fast. Like WCS, those finals, like those were done in like 10 minutes. I was blown away by how fast. But you could have like a best of 3, and if each match is like lasting 20 minutes, well, guess what? That's the exact same as a hockey game.
Yeah.
3 sets of 20. Like
Yeah,
that's
that's true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're
Sorry,
not
I heard
always
hockey,
fast, but on average, 3 matches of StarCraft are going to take less than 3 matches of League of Legends.
Oh yeah, easily.
That was
Like
from Trevor.
yeah,
I turned on CBS. They had tractor pulls on,
Yeah.
like on national television.
And I think
if they
right
actually get
now,
on TV,
Twitch is a good, or streaming is a good way because people can get up and go as they need. But I think it needs to move in.
I'm just saying,
we're
I
gonna
was
close
like
the
the
stream.
only person at BlizzCon rooting for SOS.
Yeah,
I was like the only one.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna say
Actually-
goodnight and we're gonna go off. So
Oh,
everyone have a great
Zid,
night.
we can talk about that later, but
Yeah, we can have an
Good
esports show. So
I'm sure we
Yeah.
got lots. We can use it in an episode.
Thanks for hanging out in chat, friends. It's fantastic having
Yes.
you guys.
yeah, we'll see you
Thanks,
next week.
everybody. Chat room.
I like esports. I'll talk esports with you all day long.
Everyone have a great night.
Bye, everybody.